To save a life, I've drunk 3-day-old urine of an elderly grandmother. Now, that's the way we interview international humanitarian aid workers, just in case you want the job. In actual fact, I was drinking urine with a Tibetan medicine doctor in the high Himalayas. He uses his taste buds as a diagnostic tool, and so did I. But for the past 20 years, I have worked in the high Himalayas, deep in the snow, in the jungles of the Amazon, and in the deserts of the Sahara. I've worked mostly after major catastrophic disasters. So if you think back in the last 20 years, we've had the big Asian tsunami, the Pakistan earthquake, the Nepal earthquake, Philippine typhoon, and currently I'm working after Hurricane Irma and Maria in the Caribbean. My life has been full of adventures and many misadventures. I have been held hostage by a rebel army. I've had a gun at my face twice. I've had my face slashed open with glass and had to sew it up myself with no medical aid available. And for 2 years, I lived in a war-torn country where every single day I thought it was my last. But I love what I do so much that 18 years ago, I sold everything I own, my house, my paintings, my books, and to this very day, I only own the contents of one suitcase, which is currently here in Sydney. Can you believe that, ladies? But there's certain times in our lives when we remember exactly where we were when an event takes place. For me, it was when the Twin Towers fell, when Princess Diana died, and when the Asian tsunami happened in 2004. I was sitting in Tashkent in Uzbekistan when I saw this terrible disaster unfold. Waves 100 foot high, 230,000 dead, affecting 50 countries. And I had one thought, that I had to go. I arrived in Phuket in Thailand, and I got into a taxi. And I started to make my way to the worst hit area, a village called Ban Nam Kem. And as the journey started, it looked like a nuclear bomb had gone off. Cars thrown on tops of houses, resorts crumbled like matchboxes, glass and debris everywhere. I could feel the panic starting, and I said to the taxi driver, "You have to stop." I got out of the taxi and I walked to the edge of the cliff. I looked over and I wished I hadn't. The sea was full of dead bodies. I came back from the cliff edge and I collapsed, heart pounding, sweat trickling down my back. And I had one thought, how quickly can I get out of this country? Hot, humid Thailand and the smell of decomposing bodies. And as I sat there, I was catapulted back to being an 18-year-old nurse. My nursing matron stood in front of me with her starched white apron and very stern face. And she said, "Linda, this is not about you. You are here to serve. You are here to make a difference." So I got back into the car and I headed to a survivors camp. 5,000 Thai people had been put into this camp. My first career, I was a nurse, and so I went straight to the first aid tent. Can you imagine being hit by a washing machine coming at you at 50 miles an hour? The injuries were horrific. And then it got to a stage one day, and this lovely young woman came up to me and with outstretched hands said, "Linda, please take my baby. I can no longer feed her." And I remember to this day looking straight back into her eyes and saying, "No, I will not feed your baby. But I promise you, I will enable you to feed your baby." So I went up to Bangkok and I asked the British ambassador to throw a party for industry leaders, for national and international business leaders. And I said to them, "I've got a challenge for you. We have 5,000 Thai people. They're low educated. They cannot relocate. They've lost everything. Their loved ones, their homes, their families, everything is gone. Who will come with me to the front line and see if we can find out what they can do to earn money now?" Arms shot up. 4 people came with me to the front line. They left their beautiful homes and offices in Bangkok and came to a terrible disaster area. They talked to the people, they looked at the geography, they listened. They were the ultimate detectives. A week later, after they'd gone back to Bangkok, they called me. And they said, "Yeah, we have come up with an idea of how they can actually feed themselves." I was excited because business people will never suggest something that's likely to fail. What they'd noticed was lining the coast where the wave hit still stood acres of rubber trees. They'd done the research. Rubber was viable for the next 10 years. So I said, "How much does it cost?" And they said, "We'll put them together in small family gatherings, small cooperatives, for 4 families to get the equipment, which is a coconut shell for the tree, a knife to scour the tree, and a rubber mangle, $250 US. So I went down to the villagers and I said, "How would you feel about harvesting rubber?" And they said, "Well, our grandparents did it, but we got enticed by the hotel industry and the tips, and we changed. But yes, we can harvest rubber." Within 4 months, they were earning 3 times the amount of money than they ever earned in the hotel industry. It was not my idea. What had happened was people had come together, sharing their knowledge, their perspective, listening to each other, trusting each other, and this is how this brilliant idea came about. Early on in my career, I was exceptionally lucky with the mentors I had. Sir Richard Branson, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. But I have to put the credit fully on the shoulders of the Prince of Wales. I met him in a Tibetan refugee camp in Delhi in 2001. And I shared with him my absolute passion and certainty that the private sector are the most underused resource in development work. And he nodded away, and then he stopped me. And he said, "I agree with you, they are, but as you share what you want to do with them, the private sector will get so excited, they'll write a big fat check and give it to you." And he said, "Leave it on the table." I was very shocked. He said, "Money is for the moment. It's needed, but it's for the moment. The jewel is them. It's their business skills, their entrepreneurial skills, their insights, their innovations, their empathy, their compassion, their heart, and their soul. What an amazing lesson. And this is how my impact has been so profound over the years. All the companies I work with, all the individuals, they are engaged with all the gifts and talents as I see in this room. Probably the most challenging country I ever worked in was Pakistan. I went there after the earthquake, and I stayed for 2.5 years. Greatest challenges, greatest joys. And when I arrived there, I was determined to really go to the poorest communities to see what we could do, to really empower them. And I hadn't been there very long, and I was approached by the milk industry. And they said they had a real problem. They could not access the milk. And at the time, Pakistan was the 6th largest producer of milk in the world. So I decided that I would go out into the rural part of Pakistan. Now, it's exceptionally poor healthcare, poor education, but I really wanted to go out and meet the people. I'd been there about 6 months, and a good friend of mine called Ahmed took me aside, and he said, "Linda, I know that you've been very respectful living in Pakistan, and you dress as conservatively as you can, long sleeves, long trousers, but if you're going out to the rural areas, it's time to go burqa shopping." Tall blonde woman, I thought that's going to be difficult. So I went to a burqa shop and put on the full gown and the hijab, and just my eyes were showing. And I came out of the changing room, and my friend Ahmed was there. And his jaw dropped. And he said, "Madam, you are so beautiful." In my Western clothes, he couldn't see me. It wasn't until I dressed as many of the ladies dressed there that he really could see me. And it was a huge lesson for me. Because if you can't be seen, you can't be heard, you can't be trusted, you can't build the relationship. So with my burqa and with the business leaders and the milk industry guys from Karachi, we then started to go into the villages and talk to the farmers.